Hey, what's up everyone? Tim here from Everyday Tactical Vids. Today we're looking at this, which is a new system from Work Tough Gear. We have the small knife here, which is the NYMPH, and then the larger knife here, this is the Wilson. So obviously, as you can see, a large knife, small knife combo system. You've got a D-ring here and a D-ring here, so you can set it up to carry it in more of a system with like a strap as opposed to just carrying it on your belt, but you can do that as well. Standard for a lot of these large size knives that you have or chopping tools, you've got an open slit on the top of the kydex and a snap that goes over the top like that. Let me show you the NYMPH first. Take this guy out. So one thing I can tell you right off the bat when I pick this thing up is that the handle is rounded out really nicely, so it's comfortable. Sometimes you get a skeletonized knife like this and it's just uncomfortable to hold. This one, super comfortable, nice jimping on the back. And a nice size too. When you hold it, you're not like, oh, it's a tiny blade that I'm not gonna be able to do any work with. You can definitely do some work with this guy. So there's a look at that. Here's a look at the other side. Cool little compact blade. You certainly could run paracord or something else on that, but as is, very comfortable. All right, let's take a look at the Wilson real quick. Look at that chopping tool. So pretty slick. It does look like this top is sharpened. It's actually not. It's definitely a closer to a 90-degree angle, which it feels like, but you can see actually there, it's pretty thick, whereas this is actually, that's the chopping edge of the blade. It does look like it's got a lot of contours, but for sharpening it with our sharpening rod, should be no problem whatsoever. Look at the handles there. You got some red liners, G10 lanyard hole there, two other lanyard holes there, and then one here. You may not be familiar with this, but some people like to run a lanyard here and then over your fingers, so you have really nice lock-in. It is a bit contoured on the handle, but for me, the contour is pretty much just right. So where I would naturally want it to fall, that's where my hand falls, large size hands. If you have extra large hands, you can probably still squeeze your hand in. It's gonna be a little bit tighter because of that scoop there on the end of the handle. Smaller hands, it probably shouldn't be a major problem because you've got more room there. And then obviously you can choke up like that. And the choil allows you to sharpen all the way basically to the end of the cutting portion of the blade. Now the idea behind a system like this is smaller blade for more detail work, larger blade for more chopping work. When you do have an edge that's like this, you have a little bit more of a kukri feel as opposed to like a straight edge, something like a hungless per se, for comparison's sake. I do like this, that really digs in when you chop on something. Some of my favorite knives overall, I would say the Topps kukri. I like the K-Tac kukri. When it first came out, I tested that one out and really enjoyed it. So there is an advantage to that kind of angle to the blade. There's gonna be some challenges compared to just a straight blade, I think sometimes. But ergonomically, this chopping part of the blade is gonna hit before it would hit if you had just a straight blade, right? And your hand is just in a more ergonomically comfortable position. So your hand is like this by the time this hits, as opposed to your hand have to be like this, more straightened out for a straight blade. But that thing is slick looking. I'm gonna roll in some footage here, and I'll roll in the details as far as weight, length, all those types of things for the two blades. And you can take a look at that, and then we're gonna put this thing through the paces and use it. All right, let's wrap up here talking about the Wilson and then also the NYMPH. Let's start off and talk about this guy. So I don't know if you could see it there. I showed you before I rolled it in. N690 for the steel, a good steel for corrosion resistance. Like I said before, as soon as you pick this thing up, you're like, yeah, that's pretty comfortable considering that it's skeletonized. So super lightweight. You do get the sheath with this. In this system, you can detach the sheath if you want, you know, unscrew it, unbolt it, and then they do give you a breakaway chain so you can run this as a neck knife as well. So if you're looking for a compact little blade, I think this is a really solid option. Look at 129 for this guy. I think it's called the Clapachi, if I remember correctly. That's my favorite compact knife from these guys, and one of my favorites just for a compact knife. The RB3, the Clapachi, there's a couple others out there that I like, but this falls pretty close to that category as far as especially for a skeletonized knife. Compact, does a good job cutting. Would I wrap this with paracord? Probably. I probably would, just to give a little bit more comfort for it. But I was surprised how easy it was to use and how comfortable. And obviously I use it on camera and off camera as well. It's just, I think it's kind of boring at some point where you're like, okay, he's cutting 10,000 things with this knife. Like, you probably don't want to see that. You just want to hear my thoughts on it. Would I pay $129 for this? I think that there's a unique factor. If you like N690 as a steel, you can get an Azula, you can get a couple other options in the from ESEE as well. What's the name of that? The Azula and I'm blanking on it right now, but I'll roll it in the bottom here. But other kind of similar size knives. This one's a little bit beefier. I would like to see some scales on that guy as well. I think that could be pretty slick. But if you're like, hey, I like the Azula and I like compact knives, then this might be one to check out as well. So that's the NYMPH. Not a ton of experience or conversations, I should say, with other people about this one at this point. I haven't heard a ton of thoughts on it. So if you have it, let's definitely hear your thoughts on this this knife, what you think about it. So that's the first one. The Wilson, you're looking at about $279 for this guy, and you can get it in this vintage wash or a black wash as well. Very much kukri-like with that that blade. When I was chopping, you know, I could use this front section to do smaller chopping, and then the back section I could do some more kind of slashing cuts with. Overall, hefty, good chopping tool. I will say this is the one thing that I would like to see this rounded out a little bit more. It does, I don't know if you can see it there, right? So this, there's where you're gonna rest your finger here, and then this is where your finger is gonna basically lie or lay, like this. So it is contoured quite nicely. I tend to, with the chopping tool, I like to let my hand be a little bit looser. I do feel like you got to grip this one pretty snugly to chop with it. That's not an issue, but it's just kind of a different style. A neutral handle allows you to be a little bit looser and it can kind of move within your grip. Whereas this one, because of the contours, it's not totally neutral. It's chunky in the back and then it does have that cutout. So what I will tell you is that when you're locked in, man, you really feel like you got solid control of that thing. Like I said, use a sharpening rod for sharpening this guy. As far as a system, I love systems. I think this is a great chopping tool plus a smaller tool to use for a variety of tasks out in the woods. I've said this before, but you know, an axe, you have a smaller blade that's not as long, and you're getting all the force, boom, right into that shorter blade, or yeah, the blade that's not as long as it hits into the tree. You have a lot more blade here. The advantage of having that versus an axe is that as you chop in, you know, if you don't hit it perfectly on, you've got a lot of blade. Where if the wood is here, you can hit it here, 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 here. Whereas with an axe, if you miss, you're pretty much gonna know if you don't hit the spot you want to hit. So that's why I like a chopping tool. This is not something to fell tons of trees, you know, out in the woods, but chopping up some wood, processing some wood, I think this is a great option. Again, as a system, I think that's bare. I think that's really, really slick to have your larger and your smaller, put that together, get out into the woods. Now you got a lot of good way to do a lot of work. You do have a spine here that is kind of, it's a little bit more rounded here, and then when you get out here, that's a 90 degree. So you're gonna be able to get a nice spark for your fire steel off of that, you know, like this. So yeah, I mean, a couple other things I would say about this. I love that you can sharpen the blade all the way to the end. Sometimes people don't set up the end of the cutting portion so that you can get a sharpening stone or a sharpening rod all the way there. You can do that. I do like nice big finger guard, and then you can set up your lanyard system over your knuckles if you want to do that as well. I've said this a long time ago, but when Work Tuff gear first came out, I was like, yeah. And then as they've gone on and on, I'm like, I like them more and more and more what they're offering. Just a lot of unique, cool looking tools that are super useful out in the woods. So let me hear your thoughts on these two knives. Let me grab this one as well. What do you think about them? What stood out from this video? And if you've seen other people use them, or if you have them, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And I think they're both winners. Price point is definitely going to be a challenge. You know, pay over $100 for this and almost $300 for this. It's a lot of cash to put into an investment. So, but if you do, I think you're going to be happy with it. And SK85 is a steal. I've used that for a variety of their knives, and I've liked it a lot. So let's hear your thoughts on that, and let's get the conversation started in the comment section now. All right, thanks as always for checking out the videos here on YouTube. Please subscribe to Everyday Tactical Vids if you haven't done so already. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, check us out on Instagram, Tumblr, and Vero as well. More videos coming soon. Take care.